Hello everyone, Mike here. Today I'm going to be giving you a simple guide on how to take succulent cuttings. So here I have 4 different varieties of succulents. I have an Echeveria, a Crassula, a Peperomia, and another type of a Crassula on the end. These are my favourite succulents to grow as they are all sorts of different colours, but also they're just easy to grow. Succulent cuttings are really easy to take. However, if you know the right method, you can make this really efficient and grow hundreds of succulents from cuttings. I personally think they're a great starting point for taking cuttings, as you can see them root and see their development a lot easier than you can with other plants. As well as that, succulents are relatively fast at rooting, and I can normally get a plant to go from cutting to a full rooted plant in just under 3 months, which is very quick for cuttings. The first key step in taking succulent cuttings is having good soil. There are lots of different ways of having the potting soil for succulents, and my personal favourite is having 3 parts compost and 1 part perlite. However, if you don't have perlite, you can also use grit. I find this mixture gives the plants good drainage and allows them to root without rotting, which is very important. You can root succulent cuttings at any time of the year, however you need to keep in mind that they don't like too much water, and especially in the winter months, as they usually tend to be more dormant, and while they will grow from a cutting, you don't want to overwater them as they will rot really easily. So once you've got your mixture of soil, what you want to do is just give it a good mix. You want to make sure that the perlite is evenly distributed throughout the compost. This will ensure good drainage for your plants. Once you've mixed your soil well, make sure that you have some clean trays. This is very important as you don't want to spread diseases from plant to plant. I like to use reusable plastic trays. They're made of slightly thicker plastic, and while they do cost more, they will last you for years. So first, just fill the tray up, leaving a slight gap below the bottom of the tray. It's important when filling your trays to leave a slight gap below the top. Otherwise, when you water it, the water could just flow out and make a mess. Different succulents need to be rooted in different ways, and it's important to look at the plant before you do anything. So the Echeveria and this Crassula will root by just a single leaf. The plant itself doesn't have any stalks, as you can see here. It's just a single clump, and eventually this does form more heads. So all you do is grab one of the leaves, get your rooting powder or gel or whatever you decide to use, doesn't really matter, and try and get a small amount on the edge, just like that. Then using a dibber, this is the only one I could find, but it'll work fine for these, make a very small hole in the surface. You don't want to plant these too deep as they will rot off. And then just push them in lightly. Now for the Echeveria, it's slightly different, although it is the same idea that you use a single leaf. As you can see, these have much more varied leaf size, from the larger ones at the bottom and the very small ones at the top. While all of them will root, I try to go for the ones in the middle, as these seem to have the best success rates. So I find the best way is just to wiggle it sideways. So as you can see, taking the cutting can leave a slight mark in the waxy outside of the plant, but don't worry, this won't affect it in any way. So again, get some rooting powder on it. And I don't normally use a dibber for these as they're just so large. And there you go. So now we're on to the slightly different types of succulents. As you can see, both of these have stalks, and they can become quite leggy, so it is good to prune them just anyway. It will make them a lot more bushy, and a common issue with these types of succulents is them falling over, as this one is doing. So for this you will need some small scissors, as taking the cutting is slightly different. So all you do is just below the sleeves, so I'm going to use this one as an example. I wouldn't take this cutting here from this, I would leave that, as there isn't very much space for it to root. I'd have to remove too many leaves. So what I would do is slightly above, make sure to cut it at an angle. This allows them to take in more water as they're rooting. Then remove a few of the lower leaves, not too many. I normally only ever take off 2 or 3, so you still have a decent amount of leaves. Then once again with the rooting powder, get a small amount on the bottom. For this you do need a dibber. Place them in and then make sure it's secure. I've planted that one slightly too deep, so I'm just going to pull it up so that there's a little bit of space between the bottom of the leaves and the soil. And finally the crashula. Again, doing the exact same thing, picking a good spot to take the cutting. So I'll be taking this one just here and remove it. Try and keep a slight angle, as this does help with rooting. Then again, take just above the next leaves. It's very key to have at least a centimetre of space for the stalk to root. You don't want the bottoms of the leaves here for any of the leggier varieties and the stalk growing varieties to be touching the soil, as these can just rot off. And it's very important, any leaves that will be touching the soil, so for example these, I want to remove the bottom ones. If I were to leave these on and plant them, they would just cause the plant to rot and you would basically lose your cutting. And again, it's the same thing, grabbing your powder, placing it in. So the rooting powder isn't essential, neither is rooting gel or any of the other rooting enhancers. However, I do find that they increase the chances of them rooting by quite a lot. So I like to label them with the date that I took the cuttings. This is so I know roughly how far away they are from rooting, and I know when to just give up on them. However, if you're doing this at home and you have a few varieties, especially if you're new to growing succulents, I recommend that you also write the names of the varieties, as it is very easy to forget, and I have quite a few big different varieties. So if I were to do some more different varieties of succulents, then I would definitely want to put the name of each species at least, and preferably variety if you have it. But if not, and you think you can remember it, or if you just don't mind, I do still recommend putting the date that you took the cuttings. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you found it very useful. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe for more useful videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.